Hey everybody, thank you for joining us tonight. As you can see, I am just with me. John's in the chat. We're still figuring some of the logistics out, so I appreciate everybody who has joined and is going to be here for this topic. So I can't even go banter back and forth with him a little bit, so I'm going to go ahead and jump in on our topic tonight. So it's all good. Thanks, Linda. Once again, it's like, thank you for joining us tonight, and welcome back to Deservingly You. If you're new here, this is that space for people to rebuild after high control systems and learning how to trust themselves again. Tonight's conversation is going to be a little bit different, like I mentioned, with John not being here, and also it came from something that ended up being very real that I personally was working through myself. I'm Shannon Avery Briggs. I am a transformational resilience coach, and I'm co-founder of Luminous Connections. My husband, John, who isn't with me here tonight, like I said, but is in on the chat, he also is a certified transformational resilience coach. And like I said, normally he's with me, but tonight we're still working some of those logistics issues with him being out on the road now with his new job adventure. So he may pop on the live a little bit later if he feels like it, if he can figure out how to do that with being where he's at. But other than that, tonight you have me. So I hope that's okay with you guys, because I know you guys all love John. But we're just going to go with the flow. And so this show may end up being shorter, it may be longer, but thanks so much for showing up, for you and for this discussion. So tonight we're going to continue our conversation that is aligned with what we defined as that first phase of the exit path. And we're going to look at rejection sensitivity. And we're also going to, not only with that first phase of the path, we're also going to take a look at how it might show up in the other phases, and also bring some practices that we can do to help strengthen our nervous system so that we can continue to protect our peace. So if you're here live, please type live in the chat. And if you're watching on the replay, would love to see you type in replay so that we know that you're here. If these conversations matter, please tap the like and subscribe so that more people rebuilding after control can find this work. So let's begin. So as always, we always like to set the space and set the intention for this time that we're spending together. And this is a way for us to have agreements that can help us to stay present with ourselves as well as with each other. And we can also stay on topic. It's just a shared understanding that this is a judgment-free space. And as you're here, I invite you to stay with your own experience. Notice what might be coming up for you. We also don't want to be offering other people opinions and stuff like that. We want to stay, this is about healing, and this is about moving forward. So we don't need to fix, advise, or correct anything else tonight. Just take time to notice and to reflect and to be here with what's here. So like I mentioned before, this week's topic originally was, I had titled it Borrowed Beliefs versus Lived Reality. And I was kind of struggling with what and how I was going to talk about this. And then I ended up coming across Maya Bailick's podcast, and she had an episode a couple of weeks ago, Are You Too Sensitive? And it became crystal clear then how I was going to bring this idea of the borrowed beliefs and live reality, how I could talk about that. And I'm going to include the link to that episode in the pinned message after the video is uploaded so that you can see it as well. She kind of brings it from a perspective of a neuroscientist and stuff, whereas I'm going to be a little bit more simplified. And this episode, though, was really, really powerful, and it was vulnerable too. and I found that I could relate to the topic. Like I mentioned, I was personally working through a situation myself, and I had had all sorts of different emotional roller coasters, and I had questions, and I was questioning myself and wondering what was happening, why it was happening, knowing that I didn't want to feel that way either, because I felt yuck. And it was like, how do I work through this? So tonight I want to talk about that same topic that Mayim and Jonathan had talked about on their episode, give it that name, and talk about how it may show up as for different people, and where it can show up, and what it might look like through this exit paths journey. So a lot of us, sorry, I've got a little bit of a frog in my throat. So I think a lot of us have had moments like this where something small may have happened, but that reaction that comes up, it might be an internal reaction. It actually even might be an external reaction. It doesn't feel small. You can feel it in your body, or your body. It's almost like, it also can happen where it's almost like a Tourette's thing, where you completely lose control. And then you question yourself afterwards, why in the world did I react that way? So part of you knows too that this doesn't match what just happened, but yet it still feels real. And sometimes it's not that moment itself. It's actually what our mind defines it. It makes it have a meaning. And so those small things can feel big, and they can be reassigned a meaning and a definition of what happened. And a lot of times when these kind of things, we may not know why. We may not know why this happened. And so for me, listening to this episode, I had some light bulbs come on. That's like, oh, that makes total sense, that why I may have a reaction. I may say something that I surprised. So what about you guys that are here online? Have you ever had a moment where you felt that reaction was bigger than the situation? Put it in the chat if you want to. So I want to name what we're talking about tonight. And what this is what I had learned through that podcast. Is called Rejection Sensitive Dysphoria, or RSD. You may have been, if you experienced this, you may have been told that you're way too sensitive, or you may have felt extreme guilt, even though you had very little or nothing to do with the situation. Now, a while back on the show, I had shared an experience that I had during the cancer journey, where somebody else had shared a message throughout an office, and I was devastated by the guilt. That it like triggered something inside of my body, that it was just unbelievable. I could hardly breathe. I felt so horrible. And it just devastated me at that moment. I couldn't do anything. I was at work. I had to go out and sit outside because I was so affected by the guilt that had come over me. I talked to my coach that day, and what he helped me do was have a new definition of guilt. And so that ended up becoming a tool for me that has been very powerful throughout the years ever since then. And so now, if I recognize that feeling, that emotion, if guilt comes in, within me, I can take a pause and, give that definition, and it takes the power away. And so I'm able to release that guilt a lot quicker. But what I hadn't recognized until I watched that podcast episode was that the way that I interpreted that guilt, the guilt was actually just one facet of what I have a tendency to experience. So like I said, this podcast defined it as the rejection sensitive dysphoria. Now, what this is actually a nervous system response where there's a perceived rejection or disconnection. And along with that, it's intense, and it can be immediate, And sometimes it happens before you've ever had that time to think it all the way through. And the fact is, logic's gone. It gets thrown out the window. You can't use logic to respond to this. You have to learn new different tools and techniques in order to deal with it. And so that was like the big aha for me, is like, I've got guilt is one of those pieces for me with rejection sensitivity is just one of them. And so now it's when this other situation that it presented itself, it's like, oh, well, that makes total sense. It's another way that my nervous system and my brain is reacting to the situation. And having that information, you know how John a lot of times will say, name it to tame it. That's what helped me to take a lot of the power out of it by being able to, like you said, tame it. And so by having just that knowledge, it gave me a foundation that I could work from. The thing is that this set of symptoms isn't dramatic. You're not being too sensitive. There's nothing wrong with you. The other thing is, it's not a diagnosis. It's, like I said, a collection of symptoms. It's the way that our brains have taken information. So yeah, I like that, Johnny, that rejection sensitivity is a pattern, not a prophecy. So it has a tendency to show up more strongly if your system has a tendency to already notice subtle things. And also if you have a tendency to feel those emotions really intensely and really deeply, when this is triggered, our system is scanning and interpreting and responding very quickly. Now, this happens to be really common for people who have ADHD or are on the autism spectrum. The other thing that was very interesting when I was looking this up is that it's common for people who have come out of high controlled environments. And there's nothing wrong with you, but our system has learned how to take care of us. And we were trained to stay aware and to adapt quickly so that we could stay safe and we could protect ourselves. Does this sound familiar? So there's also this concept that is called predictive processing in neuroscience. And our brains can have a tendency to always try to predict what's going to happen next so that it can keep you safe. It wants to be efficient. It wants to take care of you, take good care of you. And so for those people that have ADHD or autism or other types of neurodivergent experiences, those trauma, as well as those trauma from those controlled environments, our brain, it's like it turns on a switch that even becomes hyper-focused on predicting those threats. And it has a tendency to try to fill those gaps before the information is completely available, which is why you can end up experience that feeling of rejection before it was either ever confirmed or it'll just even make it up. It doesn't mean that you're being irrational. Your system just learned to stay aware, adapt quickly, and to be able to protect you. So the other thing with people that have a tendency to experience this is they're often high in things like pattern detection sensitivity. So they can pick up things that other people don't see because their brain is trying to assign that meaning very, very quickly. And so that's kind of where RSD lives in a sense. It's not just on the sensitivity alone, but it's also that fast meaning making. And I think one of the areas, I'll probably talk about this in a couple slides too, but one of the areas that you can see this in action is if you're on Facebook and when you see people sharing the pictures of the texts that are going back and forth between like their family members or somebody that they may be having an interaction with, where it just kind of goes back and forth and it almost seems like it's out of control. RSD could be one of the reasons that they have a challenge to pause and not get pulled into that what's the word? Johnny's not here to Johnny's not here to help me. So they get pulled into those debates. So if you do have a tendency to go on that RSD level, getting pulled into those debates, that might be part of the reason. So what does this even look like? Your system, like we said, it's scanning for the rejection, it's reacting quickly, we're feeling things deeply. And when you're in those environments where there's misinterpretation, so if you think about relationships, for example, that might be family members or even friendships, and so you might be in those environments where misinterpretation, inconsistency, or that sense of correction or pressure to be a better person, these situations don't just feel uncomfortable. With having this tendency, they actually become amplified, and it can become destabilizing because your system isn't just reacting to that moment, it's actually reacting to what it thinks the moment means. So yeah, Johnny's there. He's not as quick on his feet on the chat. So if we take this understanding and take a look at this is where it can help us to start making sense, especially if you come out of a high controlled environment. You were taught that agreement meant safety, and being wrong or disagreeing meant risk. So now when you end up in a situation and there's a misunderstanding, it doesn't necessarily just feel like a difference. Our brains can translate it as a rejection. And then there can be this urgency to want to explain and to clarify, and we got to fix the moment. We got to get them to understand what I'm trying to get the point across. And this isn't because you're trying to control a situation, but your system wants to try to restore that safety, that nervous system safety. And underneath all of this, there's this quiet pattern where we might be hearing, if they understand me, I'm okay. If they don't, there has to be something wrong with me. And once again, that's where this RSD can end up becoming amplified in our brains and drive us crazy. Yep, that's Linda, you're right. That's what it thinks that moment needs exactly. So what I want to do now, though, is show you something because what you're experiencing isn't random. There can be a pattern. I am a pattern person. This is one of the things I experience with it. I call out, I do definitely have RSD. And it's actually a pattern to how this can show up. And we've got a version of our exit paths here on the screen. So as you move through this journey, what can, and I walk through these, I want you to see if you see yourself in it. So with phase 1, that piercing the illusion, this is where everything can feel personal. And you may be questioning the interactions that you're having. You play those conversations over and over and over in your head. You're asking yourself over and over, did I do something wrong? Did I miss something? Was I really that cruel? Your system is actually trying to make sense of the world, and it doesn't feel clear anymore, especially when we first like had that illusion pierced of like first waking up. Now, in phase 2, that allowing the grief, this is where you can start realizing how much you had to adapt and how much of yourself was actually shaped around that behavior of staying safe and staying acceptable or staying in alignment. And even with that aspect, there can be grief, not just about what you lost, but how you had to survive in that environment. And that can bring up that sense of grief in your emotions as well. Now, the phase 3, that tending your roots, this is where things can start to shift. You might start seeing some patterns that you have a tendency to practice, or there might be patterns that you start recognizing in other people. And you do this without immediately judging them. Because think about some of those conversations, especially when you first woke up, how you automatically were just judging people immediately. But now you're kind of taking a step back. Oh, that's just my system reacting. And oh, okay, that makes more sense. You're actually learning what actually is triggering you and why those reactions start feeling so strong. Maui says she feels phase 2 very deeply. Okay, yeah. The other thing with these phases too is that it's not a straight line. That's why it's not a straight line on here. You can end up going back and forth depending on what happens. Now, with phase 4, honoring your wholeness, this is where you'll start seeing yourself trusting yourself again. You're not drawn into feeling like you have to over-explain everything as much. The other thing too is you're not trying to fix every moment. And there's a little bit more space between what happens and how you respond. You start feeling, I can listen to myself here. Like really listen to myself, not just that reaction and the stories that are going on. It goes deeper. You start peeling back the layers and you start listening deeper. And so Linda says, safety, right equals safety, wrong equals risk. Being understood is a big deal. Yet I'm trying no longer to allow that to be a big deal, where it will wear you out, and it wears on you. And it is so amazing to be able to have that freedom and to walk away from that, and to be able to also have the tools so that it doesn't exhaust you, that you can recognize it, know what to do, and move forward. So the last phase here is step with purpose. This is where things feel different. It doesn't mean that you're going to go numb. You can actually feel things really deeply, but there's more quality to it. And you're also not driven by you're not having those emotions drive you. You experience them instead of being driven all over by them and being forced all around. And so with that, because you're doing that, you're responding to situations instead of reacting to them. And rejection, or the fear of it, isn't going to define you the same way that it did before. So, like I said, you might even see yourself in more than one of these phases. And you might, like I said, move in between them. But wherever you are, it truly makes sense with the way that our bodies are designed to help us to work and keep us safe. So I wanted to also share how I personally work with this, because it's not about being able to immediately stop the reaction, but it's about what do we do with it. So for me personally, I try to anticipate like where I may be triggered. Is it going to be perfect? No, absolutely not. But I do try to anticipate. So there are things like doing breathing exercises or even grounding that can help me get my nervous system even settled beforehand. The other thing, like John and I talk a lot about, where do I notice where it shows up in my body? Is it a gut punch? Am I short of breath? Is there any pain anywhere in my body? And so by paying attention to this instead of the situation, this helps me to be able to slow down. And so by doing that, I actually have an ability to have an awareness that gives me more time to choose how I want to respond. So after a situation, if a situation has happened, I look for what the borrowed belief was and whether or not it aligns with my reality and whether there's some adjustments that need to be made. And I check what actually happened versus what my brain made it mean. And I choose then how I want to respond. And it may take me several days. I've even had stuff like this even take me several months to respond. Here was something that was a huge aha for me too. And this is where something really important comes in, is the idea of common reality, especially when you're in a relationship when you've got a relationship with somebody. So common reality is what actually happened and also what both people can see and agree on, instead of it being one person's interpretation that they decide and they define. It's an agreement between the two people. And so what is true and what's observable? When you're in one of those RSD moments, your mind fills that meaning up fast. And so sometimes it feels like something happened to you, where actually, yeah, something happened, and your mind or the other person's mind, even there was a meaning that was assigned to it. So what I practice is I come back to that. What do we both know actually happened? Not what I think that it means, not what I fear that it means, just what's real here. So for example, instead of like saying they're upset with me when they, so say like we're trying to correspond by text and I don't hear anything back from them. So instead of telling the story, they're upset with me, I just come back to the truth. They didn't respond to my message. That's a common reality. From there, I get to choose how I respond from something grounded instead of something that is assumed. And I also want to realign myself with my values and realign myself with my autonomy so that I am showing up. In the space. So Linda asked, borrowed belief, where or from who that borrowed from. So a couple of situations, Linda, that can experience. So say like you had somebody brought you and had a conversation. They'd been, for some reason, they seemed to be angry with you. And so they made accusations of how you made them feel. And if you can't come to that common belief between it, you might have said, who the heck was that that's not what I remember. But if you have a tendency to fall a victim to the RSD and be pulled into it, you could translate that as I humiliated them. If they accuse you, for example, of humiliating them or embarrassing them, and you don't believe that you did, but just the way that they were and the way that RSD works, you could end up taking on that borrowed belief. Does that make sense? And the other thing too is like, even with, if you look at the overall, what we were taught from the organization, how many of the beliefs that we had before we woke up, before we walked out, how many of those beliefs were truly ours? How many of those things that we believed we believed them because we were told that that's what we believed, instead of really going inside of us and said, what do I believe? What are my values? Does that make sense? Put a thumbs up if that makes sense, or if I need to go deeper in that. So I want to show you again with the 5 phases, how this might work, not just in insight, but actually as a practice. So for many of us, especially after those high controlled environments, we can understand something with our minds and not know how that fits, how we can live differently with it. And this is what this page is about. It's about the practices that begin helping you to come home to yourself, one phase at a time. Now in phase 1, that piercing the illusion, you're just beginning to see that everything may not mean what you thought it meant. And that can feel really, really disorienting. So we might start practicing just noticing, just a gentle noticing. And it might be, this isn't who I am. That was something that I learned. And maybe there's a difference between what happened and what my nervous system instantly decided that it meant. Just taking that moment for that awareness, that matters. And notice if you feel something in your body with this. Now with phase 2, the allowing the grief, there can be that deeper ache when you begin realizing how much of your safety was built around approval, and how much adapting happened just to stay connected, to stay accepted, or to stay safe. That deserves grief. So the practice here isn't about fixing anything. It's about feeling. It's about letting yourself tell the truth about what it cost you. And once again, it's like, notice if there's anything in your body. Do you notice anything? And when we go on to the phase 3, tending the roots, the work gets more grounded. And this is where you can start seeing some of those patterns without becoming the pattern. You might notice the trigger. You pause, and you can even anticipate, okay, I'm going to go into this situation. I know there's going to be somebody there, so I can kind of expect that there could be a trigger. And so doing things that you can prepare yourself, and even using a reframe, like I mentioned before, with the guilt. So now if I experience guilt, I can reframe it, and that can help me to work through that. So when you do this, when you start doing this, you can begin building that internal safety instead of chasing it outside of you. And that is where the magic starts happening. It changes everything. In phase 4, honoring your wholeness, you stop making your sensitivity the enemy. And you can start holding yourself with more compassion, more steadiness, more honesty. And you stay with yourself in those hard moments. Because a lot of times especially when we're so confused in those initial that initial stage of leaving, it's really, really hard to stay in those moments where those emotions are going kind of crazy. And so at this might be one of the biggest shifts of all, when you're able to do that, when you're able to be with yourself in those hard moments. And then Linda, I'm looking at Linda's comment where she says, I can acknowledge how they may have taken something I said or did, yet when I know that wasn't my intention, I let them know I can see their experience. I'll not take on the misunderstanding. That's a perfect example of being able to have tools and techniques to manage this, versus taking on the pain of if their experience was painful. So instead of taking on their experience as your pain. So that's a perfect, thank you, Linda. That's a great one. So if we look at phase 5 and step with purpose, rejection is no longer the thing that tells you who you are. When this was really high in me, that's what I heard over and over and over. And it seemed like no matter what I did, I felt like I was being rejected here and rejected there and rejected here, and so you start being able to not have your brain tell you those stories. There may be situations that might still kind of sting, but it doesn't define you. The other thing that you start doing at this phase is you're going to start taking smaller risks. And you'll start speaking up differently. You'll start showing up differently. You're going to tell your truth, and you're going to let yourself be more visible. And this isn't because that fear is necessarily gone, but the difference is it's no longer leading you. And that's an amazing feeling as well. One of the things that I had, that I experienced with this, was being able to speak my truth and not be afraid of what their response was going to be, and to not be to not feel like I was going to be manipulated into what they wanted me to be. And I could walk away from the conversation or at times even the relationship, and not feel depleted, not feel smaller. I felt built up. Yeah, I love that, Linda. That, yeah, it is profound. So if you're looking at this slide and wondering where you are, that's the question. How do I do all of this? But what phase? It's not how I do all of this, but what phase am I in, and what practice would support me here? Because it's not how the change happens. It's not going to happen all at once, but we practice and we start taking those tools and we use them, and it helps us to work through these situations and identify what types of things are going to help us to have better relationships. We want to be able to have better relationships. We want to be able to have our peace protected. We want to be able to be ourselves. And so it's things like this that can help us do that. Sorry, Buster's barking in the background. So now I would absolutely love to hear from you guys. Where else have you noticed this show up in your life? And I'd love, let me see, I gotta put the link in the chat. So if anybody wants to join, I'm happy to have you. If not, that's okay too. So I would be really interested too what you thought of this discussion tonight. How was this topic? Linda says, I can't let rejection of others lead me any longer. That's what I can definitely relate to that. That's it. It guided my whole entire life. Hi, Leonard.
Hi.
How
How
are you
you
doing?
doing? Oh, I'm
I'm
doing good. I can't complain.
good. Good. Johnny had it. Johnny figured out how to come on too.
Hi, John.
Hey, Leonard, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good. I can't complain.
Me neither. I'm in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Oh
Sitting in a
wow.
truck. I'm sitting in
Yep.
a truck stop, and I'm in my truck.
So, Leonard, what were your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts go back to the winding, and I see myself as the as number three.
Mm-hmm.
You know, getting treating the roots because you have you slow down, get your words out. We have to treat the roots instead of the symptoms. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you don't treat the root, the the symptoms are going to keep reoccurring. Like for trauma, basically, your
Yep.
trauma is going to keep reoccurring in the symptoms, and you're going to keep just repeating the same things that you are in or have already done.
Yep.
And you don't never want to go backwards while you're trying to go forward in at the same time, because you can hinder yourself by constantly going backwards.
Yep. For sure. Well, did this could you see some of the practice ideas? Do you think that you'll be able to use some of those?
Oh, most definitely,
All right.
definitely.
That's
And
awesome.
I recently, I've done it as well with Ruby and her channel. I bought a composition notebook for the channel, and
Love it.
I I decided to do I decided to go back to school with everything, and what I have in this notebook, and get your words out. What I have written down so far, I would like someday to come on the channel and share, because I feel like there is a lot of deep rooted trauma that we still have to deal with and get out of our lives, because we I don't want any any one of us to I don't want any of us to, how can I put it? Gosh. I know what I'm trying to say, I just can't connect it like I want.
Yeah.
I don't want any of us to fall by the wayside, basically.
Yeah, you have a huge heart for sure. Well, did you have any
Well,
questions for us? Did you have any questions around this for us?
yes, I have a question. How do you all handle personally, how do you all handle, just dealing with your own personal situations as opposed to just carrying carrying yourself around people after you've been severely severe, well, just being hurt in general. I'll just put it like that.
I come back home. I come back home to me and I get
Yeah.
curious. And like I was saying tonight, taking a moment to like really figure out what the truth is for me, especially if we can't come to that common reality. If we can't come to a common reality with the other person or with that, you know, um what's that worth? Is it
Hmm.
worth, am I still going to be, am I going to be built up after I'm around that person, or am I going to feel smaller? And if I'm going to feel smaller, I will choose to walk away.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I think I put it in the chat earlier, but what comes to mind is I realize that it's their behavior, not my identity. I don't feel an
Mm.
attachment to it. I
Right.
don't take it on. I don't take it on as part of my identity,
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
to a little bit harsher of a degree, there's a lot of people I just choose not to be around. Period.
Yep.
If it's a consistent pattern.
Yep. And that's why it's important to identify the patterns, so that you can really, what's coming up in your body, what's coming up, what are the common denominators, so that you can make a good choice as to whether what you're going to do. So
yeah. You said finding out who you are, and that's important too, Shannon, because I'm just, and I think I've said this on the channel before, I'm just the type of person, I'm not easily angry, or it's going to take, it takes a lot for me personally. You have to do something to me in order for me just to fuss, cuss, and be. I mean, get next to me in order for me just to get up in your face and threaten to physically harm you. I mean, that's just the type of person that I am. So, and when you said being sensitive, Shannon, I guess it was sensitive for me in a way, because I just wanted to, I'm just not going to tolerate and deal with I'm just not going to deal and tolerate with a bunch of nonsense and negativity. That's just me personally.
don't forget to
And
look. You also don't want to forget to look at that's one of the things. I was coaching somebody this week even, and we were talking about a specific relationship. And one of the things that she continued to do was to focus on the other person instead of focusing on herself and looking at herself. So that's one of the things I encourage you to do, as you pick some of those practices to do, is to do that.
And remember that rejection sensitivity, what we're talking about here, it's based on the past, your past experiences. It's not accurately reading what's going on right now. Okay, that's what this is about, And when what it does, and when you're able to figure, you got it going on in real time. You can identify it in real time, and even to say it silently to yourself. You're activating your prefrontal cortex, which is your logical, the part of your brain that thinks about things logically, instead of your survival brain where you're reacting to everything. And when just knowing that is huge. It's just being aware and being able to see it as it's happening. And this is what's going to happen in your brain. It slows everything down, and you're able to pause, take a step back, and walk away, and come back and visit later. Okay, whatever it is.
Yep. It has nothing to do with them, Leonard. It has to do with you. So, well, we've got somebody else on the backstage. So did you have any other final thoughts or questions?
Yeah, I just want to say this for a final. Even though that I don't personally, we are not biologically blood, I consider you both as my family. I love y'all just like I would love my biological family.
Yay.
And if anybody,
I love that.
And if anybody has a problem, they can get out the way and just get out the way and mind their own business.
Okay.
So,
well, thank you, Leonard.
So hopefully we can, get together and just talk about our dealing with our trauma and healing and moving forward.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining the stage and for supporting us. We really appreciate it. I'm going to
Oh,
take
thank
you off.
you.
Yep,
Thank
I'm
you,
going to
Leonard.
now, and we'll bring Linda up. So
Appreciate you.
thank you, Leonard.
Uh,
Bye bye. Hi, Linda.
Hello. I
Hi.
just I just love Leonard's heart. I just love his heart. And
Yes.
Leonard, you just look so handsome today with that shirt on and everything. And I did get the message you were putting out there. I did understand it. Thank you.
What was that? Were you talking about me or him or Leonard?
Leonard.
Okay. You
Your
kind of cut
shirt
out
your
there for.
shirt your shirt does look okay, but I
And I was
liked
gonna
it.
say, I was gonna. You were kind of cutting out there. I did hear that. And I'm like, I just got a T-shirt on. Okay.
Yeah, so man, today's show is like, okay, this is what I call triggering.
Oh, is
And
it?
yeah, so um emotional sensitivity does fall right into that.
Yep.
And so it's an added on realization to my conclusion of what being triggered is. And
Mm-hmm.
that's really helpful. And I'm also realizing lately, as in the last 3 to 4 weeks, that as I reflect on things, I've spent a lot of time trying to make sure that I'm understood, but I've done it to the point of wearing myself out.
Yep.
And then I realized, or what I've realized lately is that's like I don't feel safe until I'm understood that they understand my true intentions. And if
Mm-hmm.
they are in a place of thinking my intentions are something other than what they truly are, that takes me back to my childhood
Yeah.
and being punished for intentions that were not what my intentions truly were. So it feels unsafe.
Yeah.
And I feel like I need to convince them, otherwise, I'm not going to be safe. And it's kind of that codependent thing. I'm
Yeah.
not okay until they're okay, you know?
Yep. So one of the like huge shifts for me was, do what I have to offer them, that my perception, my idea, my perspective, are they worthy of receiving it?
That's a good question. I just kept asking myself, why aren't they
Yes,
getting my, you
exactly.
know, what do I have to do? How
Yeah.
do I come
Yeah.
and approach them differently as if it's all on me? And it's not. It takes two
Yep.
to
And so
be in conversation or friendship or whatever,
when
right?
I had that shift, that was like, there for me, it's a couple of pieces. Being bold enough to speak my truth, but
Mm-hmm.
that's one aspect. But the other thing is, um, being, are they worthy of me even, um, sharing what my personal thoughts and my value is, that do, what's more important, their perspective and me convincing them that I'm, what I want to convince them, or is my information like worth a million gold, million pieces of gold or whatever, that they don't even deserve it.
Yeah, I'm seeing that shift within myself,
Mm-hmm.
going from that exactly what you just said. And it's a different viewpoint, but it feels more settling. It feels
Yep.
less troublesome in my spirit. So this
Yep.
is huge for me, very huge.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So did this topic kind of hit it on the head? Did it make sense
Oh,
when we were
big.
talking about the borrowed beliefs then versus the reality?
Yes. So if somebody misunderstood something I said or did, and they tell me this is how they received it, I can let them know, I understand what that must have felt like. And I can actually see how that could be taken. Something I did or said could be taken that way. But to clarify it, I would let them know that wasn't my intention. I
Yeah.
was actually coming from a different place. I was actually doing it for clarity, or I was actually doing it to comfort you. And I'm so
Yeah.
sorry it did the opposite. So I can't apologize for
Yeah.
for the way it landed on them. But
Yeah.
I'm not going to receive the way it landed on
Yeah.
them and
Yeah.
accept that to be my intention, because I know that it wasn't. And
Yep.
that has taken me a long time to be so confident that I know it wasn't, and I'm not going to be convinced by somebody else that it was, because I lived in a place for a long time where
Yeah.
I was made to be convinced that that was the way it was. Like
Yeah.
they knew my intention better than me.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing that you said, where you said, I can apologize to them. Make sure that when you do decide to provide an apology, that you truly feel that you're sorry. You're not providing the apology just to appease the situation.
Can you say that again?
You want to make sure that when you're offering that apology, that you're genuinely feeling that,
Yes.
instead of just apologizing to appease the situation.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like I've heard people say, well, I'm sorry you felt that way. Like,
Yeah.
you
Well,
know,
and it comes back to you again. Like
I
you,
truly am sorry it landed that way for them. That's because it wasn't my intention. And, so I can take some responsibility, but I can even shift and maybe try another way of showing them
yeah.
my intent, but I'm not going to receive it as if that truly was my intent, the way that the misunderstanding.
What if their response ended up being, was you pulled back and kind of looked at it? What if it was a projection on you?
That's a possibility that I'm actually looking at a lot over the last 2 years,
And
which
so,
I never thought of before.
yeah,
This kind of intention shifting kind of thing.
yeah.
Yeah,
So if they're projecting on you,
there it is, projecting. Yes.
if they're projecting on you, do you need to provide an apology?
For my behavior and my intention, no, because whatever I did is what I did,
Right.
and then if they want to accuse me, and this happens often in life,
Yeah, absolutely.
show up
Absolutely.
and say hi, and then they're like, "Yep, you're a criminal." It's like, where'd you get
Yeah.
that? This is just an example, right?
Yeah.
Which has not happened to me, but I see the blame shifting. Maybe somebody with a criminal mindset is like, "You're the criminal."
Yeah.
Like, oh wow, where did
Exactly.
that come from? And I'm surely not going to receive that, and hold it and own that one. Nope, I'm handing that one right back to you, sir. You can
Yep.
hold that one yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a kind of a huge lesson for me too, to not automatically be willing to offer up an apology, because I realized it was more about people pleasing than it
Hmm.
was about genuine forgiveness.
Yeah.
And I'm noticing my apologies. Are they simply appeasing? Am I truly, is my apology really sincere, or am I just hoping that everything will settle down? So I'll do whatever it takes to make sure their anger settles down so that I'll be safe. I'm asking myself that,
Yeah.
because that's a place I'm used to functioning in.
I love that. I love that you're questioning yourself and that you're asking yourself.
Yeah.
So,
Hey,
Did you
Linda.
want to say something, John?
Linda, can you see that question in the chat?
Yes, I just looked over at it, and I'm going to reread that. Oops, something wrong. Um, yes, this is
That was,
exactly what's been coming up. Mm-hmm.
that was months and months ago, and
Yes.
and I feel like you've come a long way since then. Like you felt like it was personal. We dropped the ball on our end, but that time we didn't announce that the show wasn't going to be on or whatever it was. And then
Mm-hmm.
you
Perfect.
reached out to me and we talked.
I was living in a place of misunderstanding. And
Yeah.
I totally was, and I brought it to you and just went, this is what it looks like. It might not be the case, but man, it sure does feel like it,
yeah. So I want to
and,
talk
and
about that. Yeah, I want to talk about that a
okay.
little bit, where we were talking about the common reality.
Mm-hmm.
The conclusion of that, the outcome of that was,
Yes.
that's a common reality. That's an example of a common reality.
We lost you, Shannon.
You lost me?
Yeah, I can still see her.
Well, you're frozen on my end anyway.
You're frozen.
That's what's going on. Yep.
Yeah,
John,
same.
you look frozen to me, but I think
Yep.
we're all still here. So
Yeah.
are you saying, Shannon, that today we're at a place of common, what did you
So with
call it? Common reality?
human reality, yeah. So when we had the situation, do you mind if I share with
You
what
can,
what
please
happened?
do. Yes,
Okay.
I'm good with that.
So a few months ago, John and I didn't end up having a show. You were expecting the show to be on. We weren't there, and so you reached out to us and
Hmm.
shared with us, that it you felt like you were being left out, that we had kind of planned something else and you were being left out. And so we ended up discussing the situation, and we were like, yeah, we messed up here in this situation. And but the conversation that we were able to have and to gain the understanding of where everybody was coming from, that's what I mean when I say a common reality. We get on that common ground.
Yes, yes. And being that I came to you and said, this is what I'm experiencing, um,
Yeah.
both of you or one of you got to say what was actually happening, even though I was experiencing it from my history, from
Yeah.
my past experiences, was flushing up in me and triggering me. I got to see that that is not, in fact, the case. That that was an experience that was fleshing up in me because of my past. And then ever since then, to me, it's been smooth sailing. You know,
Okay. Yeah.
you've seen improvements in me. I've seen improvements in both of you. You know, you've done a few things to make sure. It's a matter of communication. And
Yep.
you guys were in the middle of a move, and that's exhausting. And yeah, so I appreciate that. And John called me. He got in touch with me right away, and just listened to me, even though I was, in the state that I was in, and I was very, very sensitive. And yes, rejection sensitivity is what I was going through.
Yep.
Exactly that.
Yep. Absolutely.
And I do not experience that today at all. So I appreciate that. Oh, you
Yep.
came back
I
in.
Absolutely. There
I
we
Hmm.
just
go.
I just I disconnected from the truck stops internet and
Wi-Fi.
hooked up and did my phone. Is
Okay.
that better?
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, any other thoughts or questions, Linda?
John's been going in and out, and I just want to make sure John's hearing me. That from the time that he was willing to listen to me and how I was experiencing things, he didn't correct me at the moment. He didn't tell me I was overreacting. He let me be in my moment, okay?
Mhm.
And said, this is actually what's been going on. And I literally saw and heard him saying, we need to improve in this area so that this doesn't happen again with you or anyone else. That's
Yeah.
the communication I received from him. And I've seen, the more the two of you have learned, the notifications you put out, because sometimes I've shown up for one of these meetings, and then I'll go over to the post area, and you posted, yep, we're taking the day off for Super Bowl. I'm like, oh, no problem. I just got that message. I'm like, good for them. And then I go do something else.
Mhm.
So, it's been, I see the improvement on both of our parts, and thank you for
And
for listening to me when I was in that place of rejection.
Oh, you're so very welcome, Linda. Thank you. I
yep.
appreciate
and
you.
and you could imagine if by chance John suffered from the rejection sensitivity, what that interaction could have been like.
Yes.
So that's where, like, talking about the phases and stuff like that tonight, and about the different
Hmm.
things that we can do to strengthen that can help.
Yes. I'm going to have to watch this again, because just making my comments
Uh-huh.
made it to where I had to tune out from what you were saying, which is why I have hesitated to journal during this program. I won't be
Okay.
able to do journal endless. So yeah, it's but you know what? Under that section just before you open things up for us to come in, is like, people that fall into this as those with ADHD, those with autism, and have came out of controlling situations. I'm like, my picture should be right there.
Yep.
That's me. That would be me.
Yep, absolutely. I get it.
Quite susceptible. It's common and normal, and that's helpful to know that it's common and normal to be susceptible of being highly sensitive if we've had these experiences. So that's very helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You bet. Alrighty. Well, thank you,
Linda.
Thanks for joining in the comments. We really appreciate it. So, can we leave you on? I can leave you on.
Sure. I'm having major feedback right now.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well.
Because it says this. I think there's still 2 of me online. That's why.
Oh, could be. I don't have you. I've got 2 of you backstage. I don't know how to get rid of you. So there, I kicked you out.
Okay, good.
All right, there we go. So so next week we're going to continue this, and we're going to go jeez, deeper. We're gonna stay on the the exit paths phase 1. We're actually going to talk about the fear of being wrong and why it feels so big, because for a lot of people this isn't just about being wrong, it's about what it feels like when that certainty that you're living in starts to shift. So Maui said that she had learned about RSD before, and until this show, I didn't realize how heavily I was affected. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm glad that that helped you. So thank you.
Awareness is everything. Once you become aware, you can't unsee something, and then you can take action. That's awesome.
Yes. So once again, we're going to do, if the conversation resonated with you, I want to invite you to take it a little bit deeper and continue the conversation. We've been doing this for a few weeks. Linda's been joining us, and a couple of other people have been joining us too. We have a Facebook called the Exit Generation. And what we do is we have a conversation based on the this episode, the Monday after the Sunday. And so it's what we have in this space is we start practicing standing in our own truth and asking questions and being really curious about ourselves individually. And so we have this environment too, this Facebook grape. Boy, I am just tongue-tied tonight. It isn't about having a debate or having even any of those right answers. What we want is we want to have that space for reflection and for growth, where we can take this individually, and we can slow down and look at what might be coming up for us. So here's some of the questions that I've got on the screen. These are the questions that we'll be covering tomorrow. It's a type of breakout. John and I did this kind of work when we were going through our training as well as through our own healing. And so we found it so powerful. We wanted to bring it to this community as well. So the questions that we're going to be considering, like I said, where have you noticed yourself reacting in this way? And was it to the perceived rejection? What's that story? What story in your mind? For me, especially when I was being accused of stuff, I might have a story in my mind that comes up that says I'm not lovable, I'm not acceptable, I'm not good enough, those types of things. And also, in addition to that, what might be true outside of that story. So if you want to join us, look for us in Facebook, look up the Exit Generation. I'll have a link to the pinned post as well. You don't have to share if you don't want to. If you want to just come and listen to the conversation, you're more than welcome to do that. You can even take these down and journal on them if whatever can help you. And this is where you can start working with this. So we'll be live Monday tomorrow, and we would absolutely love to have you guys there.
And if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. Help us get to 18 million subscribers. No.
It's not about the numbers, it's about the hearts and the deserving lives.
Just getting it out there, share to people that need to hear it. That's all. Yeah. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So we always like to end the episode with a quote, and I want to leave you with this tonight. Between stimulus and response, there's a space. And in that space is your power to choose. That space is what we've been talking about tonight. It's that moment between what happens and what your mind makes it mean. So when you start to recognize that space, you realize something really important. And you are not your first reaction. You also have a choice. And that choice is where everything begins to change. So thanks for being here tonight and for your presence. Thanks, Johnny, for calling in from Utah, and Linda and Leonard for making, coming up on stage and adding to the conversation. We really appreciate it. We appreciate your openness and your willingness to look at this. This kind of work isn't easy. We know that, but it does matter. You don't have to get it perfect, and you don't have to figure it out all at once, but start noticing, slow it down, keep coming back to you. All right. We will see you next time.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
All right. All right. Bye, Johnny.